then he stood up. Well, when he stood up, I stood up from the couch, and he took my hands in his hands, and he said, Kathy, he said, why would you punish the Chinese people further for the thoughts of a few? He said,
Hello, Empower Nation. Welcome to another episode of Empower Her Money Podcast. I am your host, Angela Duncan. Today's episode, I get to interview Kathy Gardarian, and she is going to talk about leading with love, what that means. We're going to talk about her best-selling book and also the conversation she had with the Dalai Lama and what she learned from that. Today's sponsors is morewithangela.com, bringing you passive income opportunities from the wealthy to you. Morewithangela.com. Keep more, make more, live more. Go to morewithangela.com today. Book a call with me and let me help you on your passive income journey. Hi, Kathy. Welcome to Empower Her Money Podcast. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you.
Awesome. I am excited to have you on the podcast today. I would love for you to first start with your journey and kind of your reason behind starting your company that you have today.
Okay, well, I actually was working for 5 men who owned a company in Los Angeles, and I was the only female salesperson. And although I had the highest sales totals most of the time, so the president would close the door of the sales meeting and say, well, Kathy, yes, she has the highest sales totals again. So how do you guys like being beat out by a skirt? And it would be that kind of thinking, and even other things he would say were very demeaning. And what was interesting is I wasn't even an employee. I was an independent contractor, and whatever I produced, they kept 2/3 of the money, and I got 1/3. And here I was producing so much money for them, and they treated me so badly. And I remember he looked at me one day and he goes, you're a woman, you could never do this, because he was pointing to all of the products that he had in the warehouse that they were distributing and stuff. And, and so I went home and I really started to think about how upsetting this was to me. And so over Christmas, I decided, of course, I had a lot of my friends were pushing me as well, but I said, I think I'm going to just get a DBA. I'm not going to give up my job there yet, but I'm going to let them know that, maybe I'm thinking about something bigger. So I decided on the name of Qualis. Qualis is the Latin root word meaning a degree of excellence and quality. And I thought, if I'm going to be a woman, I'm going to go out and do it with excellence and quality. Then I added international, didn't have any international business yet, but I didn't want to limit myself. Then I incorporated. So when I went in after the holidays, I gave them this form and I said, from now on, make my checks to Qualis. So they got very suspicious, and they got even worse. I mean, going behind my back, telling some of my clients they'll pay them money in cash in the mail if they don't. I mean, it was really bad. And it got to a point where as much fear as I had, because I actually never thought about having my own company, which is interesting. But there was so many things dropping in front of me that pretty soon I got angry enough, and I went, because my clients were calling me saying, what is going on, So anyway, when I finally left, I have to say that they even wanted me to sign a do not compete clause. I'm going, you can't do that. I'm not even an employee. And anyway, bottom line, it was quite an interesting experience. And even though I pushed through even more fear, I want to tell people that I think success is an inside job. And why I say that is because we have to look at the biology of our belief systems. We've all had some trauma. We've all had things that we're going to have to forgive ourselves for, things we're going to have to forgive others for. And we need to look at that stuff. Just look on the inside and see what's keeping you from your genius and your creativity. and just forgive them and move on, because we all are here for full self-expression. So what's interesting about all that, when they told me that I couldn't have my company, we ended up, we're in our 35th year, and we basically, we've been in the top 40 women-owned businesses in Orange County, California. I did get the National Association of Women Business Owners, gave me a Lifetime Achievement Award. We did things that we pressed through things I never thought I'd press through. So I really encourage people to do the inner work.
Yeah, you learned a lot from your experience on what not to do so that you could carry it forward and change that within your own company. And I love NAWBO too. We have a NAWBO chapter here in South Florida, and being part of a women's network is important, and key.
Yes, it's lovely. That's great. That's great.
Now let's talk a little bit about the World Business Academy. Tell me, what exactly is that, and why you decided to have the World Business Academy?
Well, I'll tell you, they changed my life. I had my company only 1 year, and I read this article by Willis Harman, who was a great scientist at Stanford Research Institute, and he was talking about, it was a Saturday, I read the article. He was talking about how so many businessmen were coming to the Stanford Research Institute because they wanted to talk about science and business, spirituality and consciousness in business. Just something, how do we kick it up to a better level? What about ethics in business and that sort of thing? And my ears perked up because I have been studying that my whole life, going deeper and having real conversations. And in Orange County and, in Newport, I would go to different events, but it seemed like the dialogue was up here, and I wanted it deeper and needed it deeper. So I couldn't wait to call. On Monday, I called Willis. I said, what do you think? I said, I need to find out, because he didn't say how to reach the World Business Academy. He was just talking about them. So he said, after we talked for a while, he said, I think you'd be perfect. I'll have one of the co-founders of the Academy call you. Well, Ronaldo called me, and I started telling him a little about myself, about the World Business Academy. Sounds so interesting. So then he was very kind at first, and he said, well, you have to be a CEO to join this group, which I actually didn't know. But I said, well, I am. I didn't say just 1 year, but I said, but I am. And he said, oh, well, but also you have to do a minimum of $2 million a year in sales. I go, I'm way past that. And now he's really quiet. And so I'm thinking, now what, So then he said, you'd be the only woman. And I said, I'm kind of used to that. And I think that I will get value from this group and I can bring value. So anyway, he set up an appointment for me to meet him. The group at that time was in San Francisco, and I flew up there. And he said, the minute you walked in and sat down, I knew you'd be perfect for this. Well, the Academy was, I was a member 22 years, and I was the first woman on the board for a long time. And I loved our meetings. I flew up there. I flew up to San Francisco once a month. I never missed a meeting in 22 years, no matter where it was in the world. I mean, I had world meetings too. And I learned so much because the dialogue was real and authentic. And CEOs can gather, and we would talk about some issue we were having. And then they would show you, well, we've had that problem. We did this. And so it was very helpful for me, especially with the fact that one of my first clients was the Home Depot stores. And I got the account when they had 25 stores in the whole country. And I took them to, work with them. They have 2,500 stores. I took them to a lot of different places, a lot of different shades of the Home Depot, and in the Expo stores, all those. And I learned a lot because, again, it was all men I was working with. The Home Depot, I lovingly call them the tool belt crowd. And it's different to go in as a woman and sit there as a CEO and get it done. But so the Academy, I did join, and I wasn't a member. I want to tell you my story about the Dalai Lama. Okay.
Okay.
I wasn't a member more than 2 months, maybe 3, and I get a call from Ronaldo, and he said the Dalai Lama is in Newport Beach.
Hmm.
I said, yes, I know. And he had just won a Nobel Peace Prize. And basically, he said he's in a private home in Newport, and they've it said that the East West Foundation brought him, and they could have 6 members from the World Business Academy there if you'd like to go. I said, I'm there. It's in my backyard. Well, at the time, then he said to me, well, the Dalai Lama has agreed to sit one-on-one with each of you, because there's only going to be 40 people there. And he says, I just want you to be prepared, have a question that you want to ask him. Well, so the backstory to this is I already had the World Business, I had the Home Depot account, and they had sent me to find a factory in China that would produce some merchandise bags for us and just help us with our domestic suppliers so that we could cost average, but also be able to make sure that we had enough. They were opening 246 stores a year at the time. I mean, I was busy, and the whole edict was no back orders. So I liked having some extra, even if they were coming from overseas. So I went there, I figured it all out. I had 7 containers on the water, some going to the port of Charleston, some going to the port of Los Angeles, and everything was going great. And was, by the way, in that factory was almost all women working, and I loved it. It was wonderful, thrilled to actually do the work. And then all of a sudden, Tiananmen Square happened in China in 1989, and they really just killed 3,000 students. And I was heartbroken, and I had a lot of people called me and said, you need to look at your life, and you need to stop doing business in China. Just take a stand for human rights. And I actually agreed with that. I just didn't know how to do it, because I had these 7 containers on the water, and I don't know how to stop those and not run out. And they were opening all these stores. And so actually, I just didn't know how to do it. So when he said, think about what you would ask the Dalai Lama, I thought, oh, I know exactly what I'm going to ask him. So anyway, I'm sitting with him alone on a couch, and he is delightful. He's got a great sense of humor. He's just was so warm and loving. And then I told him my situation. I said, well, I'm working out of, Hong Kong and the south of China, and I'm very upset about Tiananmen Square. And I said, I think I need to leave the business. I think I need to go. And I said, what do you think I should do? And then he stood up. Well, when he stood up, I stood up from the couch, and he took my hands in his hands, and he said, Kathy, he said, why would you punish the Chinese people further for the thoughts of a few? He said, this is so important because it completely changed how I view life and did business. He said, you never think about what you don't want. You only take your thoughts about what you want to see, how you want it to go, and you put your energy and your consciousness there, and that's how you create your own reality. And he says, and you just act like it's already happened. So, and I was thinking about that, and he saw the change in my eyes. He said, he knew I got it. I went, wow. I said, I never thought about holding it that way. Well, it's a very interesting lesson that happened to me so early on in my career, and the Academy continued on to be this wonderful catalyst, and which so what I say in my book is, find your tribe. You have to find like-minded people who think like you think, that will advise you. And I was very blessed to have the Academy. And I would say that, You need the people. There's so many friends that, wish you well because you're doing well in business. But sometimes you need somebody that's going to be honest with you and really kind of save you from something that could be doing better. And something that you're not even seeing, just like the Dalai Lama did. And by the way, I have seen him twice after that because of the Academy, had events with him, and he remembered, he helped me. And I think he's one of the great minds of the world. I do.
Yeah, that's a great story of being in the right room at the right place and taking advantage of the opportunity that's in front of you.
Yes. And the synchronicity of just joining and then having that happen. I love that. Yeah.
Great timing. So Kathy,
Yeah.
you're an author. I love asking the authors that come on my show about the inspiration behind why you wrote your book and what you hope accomplish from writing that book.
Okay. Well, I have to tell you, I took several years, and I kept telling my friends, I'm not going to write. And finally, I have a lot of friends in the human potential movement, and Jean Houston is one of them. She's been my good friend for over 30 years. So is Deepak Chopra. And they both said, you have had more experience than most worldwide, than most women will ever have. And so you need to share your story because people learn from storytelling. Well, I got to tell you, they kept going and going. And even Jean Houston once said to me, well, all right, I'll write it for you, and I thought, no, she's not a businesswoman. This is not going to work. So anyway, bottom line, I decided one day that my story I would love to share with women, because I would never want a woman to ever believe what I was told, which you can't do this. And actually, I overperformed everything they'd ever done. So I feel like, and this I also feel is a time of moving women forward anyway. And to the degree we can bring that balance, again, doing the inner work, bringing that balanced feminine energy into the workplace, what we have is an ability, I think, to affect men and help them to relax more with women and treat us more as equals. Because once we drop all these structures they have that are sometimes difficult to penetrate because of their ego or position, I think the whole thing just gets better. It's just more productive. It's more exciting. It's everything. And it's definitely more profitable. And it's more fun. You can just be real and authentic. Authenticity, you never want to give up who you are.
Yeah. And I think that kind of leads us into the next subject, which I call it heart-centered, but you also refer to something similar called leading with love. What does that mean?
Well, again, I go back to the Academy. When I got the Home Depot business, when they only had 25 stores, I started with 6 products, and I had a wonderful female buyer, and she was difficult at times, but she was easy to work with. And we finally, by the time I had her for 7 years, the first 7 years, and I worked with the Depot, and we were probably at about 50 products I was selling them. And she had me store door delivering nationwide. That was another whole change in the way I had my company. Now I had a distribution business. And it, we had, everything was going so well. And then all of a sudden she left. And I got calls from my other friends that were also vendors. And they said, wait until you see who our new buyer is. He's so difficult. And I knew who he was. I knew him, and I knew he'd be difficult, but I didn't think he'd be this difficult. And so every month I would go up to the Academy. And of course, when it was my time to talk, I would just complain about this guy. Oh, you should have seen what he does. And he screams and yells and threatens the business and wants to change things when it's doing so well. And we're still opening 246 stores a year, and you got to take the regular stores. I was really stressed. And I actually came to my office after a trip to Atlanta where they have their store support center. I came back to Newport and I came in and my son was working with me. And I told him, I said, I'm going to give up this account. He said, what are you talking about? You know, it's so profitable. It's so this and that. I said, I can't work with him. I just can't work with him. We don't need this. We could have many nice, fun clients. This is difficult. Well, when I went up to the academy one time, I was starting with one of my stories, like, well, you have none what he's done now. And they stopped me and they said, okay, close your eyes, sit down. They said, we're going to ask you this question. Do you think that David, that's his name, is another aspect of the divine? Now, I've got my eyes closed and all I'm seeing is his face this close, screaming, yelling, using profanity. And I'm thinking, so I opened my eyes and I looked at, we're still all guys. And I said, well, I might be one with all of you, but I'm not one with him. And so then they all laughed at me. And I looked at them like, why are they laughing? And they said, you know, Kathy, we think you know better. I just think you've forgotten. You've gotten so lost in this. Okay, close your eyes again. So then they said, do you think he's coming from love or from fear? And of course, I had to make him wrong. I opened my eyes and says, well, he's not very loving, you know. So, but basically, so to answer your question about love, you know, I love poetry. And in my book, I have all of these wonderful old quotes that we need to remember in life. But, and one of my favorites is Rumi, the poet Rumi. And he said, love is the bridge between you and everything. But I think that we do forget that. And so when I say lead with love, this is what they told me to do. They said, the next time you're with him either on the phone or in person, we want you to beam him love. You don't have to say anything. Just you create the energy when you come in the room, you create it so that however he needs to be, you're going to love him the way he is and the way he's not. So that, my dear, was a huge lesson that he finally admitted about a year and a half later. I never said anything I was doing. But when we had another encounter and another issue with one of our manufacturers, he said, you know, Kathy, how you sometimes come in a room and things seem to calm down? He said, do that with this other manufacturer. And I knew he was feeling it. So again, feminine energy is so powerful. Women are so great in business. So but you know, but we don't want to just go in and be, you know, full of conflict or argue back or just want to be right. No, we can go and take it to a higher level. So when I say lead with love, that's what I mean.
Like that. I agree with that 100%. Kathy, I have a fun question for you. If you could have a superpower, what would it be and why?
Mm. Well, sometimes I think I'd love to fly, but because if I want to be in Italy, I could just go. You know, I think at a deeper level, I really love, and I wish I had the power to see ahead of what synchronistic thing is going to happen, so that I know the next great adventure. Because for me, everything, when I finally just was more my authentic self, it opens up so many things. Or what the Dalai Lama says, just act like what you want's already happening. It's very interesting. And then you see the next thing comes and I have a question about something or I wonder about something and boom, the phone call comes in, the person you need to meet. It's very interesting. I think I would like to be able to see ahead of that if I could. So,
Awesome. Kathy, if our audience wants to get in touch with you, learn more about your book or what you're doing, what is the best way for them to reach you?
well, probably the website, because the website's got everything on it. That's the book is The Wisdom of Love in Business. And so it's the wisdomofloveinbusiness.com, but also Kathy at kathygardarian.com. They could reach me there as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time today.
happy to be here and happy to share. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for tuning into Empower Her Money podcast. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to subscribe, share this podcast, and leave a review wherever you are tuning in.